So welcome to a new session of On Air, the online format of Swiss AI Weeks and Wildcard Media. And we have created On Air to provide a platform to people to learn about AI. And we do invite experts from all kinds of domains to share their knowledge with the people. And today, I'm very happy that we have amazing guests here, and I'd like to welcome Michi Wegmüller and Montazar Benmerad from Artifact, who co-created this great panel today. And the topic will be Scaling Gen AI for Real Impact, Lessons from the Front Lines. And we have amazing guests. And this will be today Paul Mayrath from City of Zurich. Hi, Paul. Then we will have Pascal Simon from Visika. Hi, Pascal. Dennis Meyer from UBS and Robin Kaufmann from IKEA. And the session will be streamed on YouTube again. And I now hand over to Michi. The stage is yours.
Perfect. Many thanks. And also from my side, a very warm welcome to our introduction and panel session on how to scale Gen AI for real impact. It has been fascinating to oversee the number of people interested to talk about this topic. It's also not a surprise. It has been quite big in the media with some recent reports. And that's why I think it's the right time right now to talk about what is needed to actually, on one hand side, create impact with AI. And on the other hand side, then as well to scale the impact with AI. So we're going to start first with some introductions and some input from recent research materials from Montazar before we then jump into the channel, where also obviously we hope that you are going to be quite active and pulling your questions that you have at the top of your fingertips into the panel. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to also introduce you to Montazar, who has 25 years of experience in digital strategy and AI consulting. He is a trusted advisor for many boards across banking, insurance, pharma, life sciences, and other industries. I was a CEO of a spin-off himself, and right now is my friend and co-founder at Artifact. So Montazar, take us through some of the details.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Michi, and welcome to everyone. So what I wanted to share with you is also, to address the topic, we have to see also that this is a topic that has moved extremely quickly compared to many other technological topics. So if you think about it, between 2022 and 2023, it was really for the Gen AI, the foundation and experiments. Of course, Gen AI existed before, but when we see the number of models and breakthrough with LLM and foundation models in these years, this has been exceeding expectations of most of the analysts and most of the scientific community. So this is very interesting, but that means also that businesses in 2023 had almost no budget to think about it when ChatGPT started to skyrocket. But most of the businesses started to have experimentation around it. So 2023 was probably the year of experimentation where people had to deal with Gen AI without having really budget, and lots of corps and large organizations were thinking, what should be our strategy? And the most advanced one had very quickly adapted their strategy to go in this direction. And very quickly, the question is, what should we invest and how to go forward? So what we've seen in 2024 is really the first steps of deployment. So many companies and large organizations started to have their own kind of company GPT deployed and operational. And this has started to have more attention from the senior management and some real investments going in this direction. So experimentation moved from almost 55% based on the research we've seen to 72%. And most of the companies had several kind of pilots working on that side. And the challenge was coming more and more about what's the real return on investment. And this is, of course, a challenge when you see a technology moving very quickly, competition and market adopting it in very different ways, and lots of questions about, how to address the impact and how to get some return. What we saw in 2025 this year is many companies starting to move from, let's say, kind of everyday AI or the augmentation to something like reshaping the processes, and more discussions about the agents, although the technology is moving also very quickly, but not completely autonomous. So, what we see on the market is, of course, lots of questions about, now we have to make it more measurable. And we have to address the question about change of the teams to adopt more AI. And what we see more and more now, and particularly for the future, are the question about scaling and automation. So this is really the part where the impact is going to get bigger, and probably also the area where many of the companies are getting more and more interest. So the question about generating impact, getting scale are probably the most important things right now from that perspective. So on the next slide, we see the question about how to get this impact real. And the key element that we see in the terms of transformation for many players in the market is moving really from this kind of everyday AI, so this kind of augmentation, to the kind of reshape processes, reshape with AI. So these are words that are used by different consulting companies like BCG and others. But this is really moving from this kind of quick wins where it's difficult to measure to something that is getting more and more on tackling a couple of processes where it's getting more automated. And that's probably the best way to start to demonstrate your return on investment. And this is definitely an area where there is more focus from what we see from the business leadership team, and getting everything more measurable. So going from these kind of qualitative benefits, I can save a couple of hours every day, every month, every week, depending on the people and their roles, to something that can really be measured in terms of revenue impact. So on the top line, or reducing the cost on the bottom line, reducing the time to market, or the response to a customer. And these are things that are getting more and more measured, and where there is more and more expectation. And this is probably the way where companies have to go from this kind of augmentation to this kind of transformation step by step. And the third point that we see as quite important is also the focus on the people. All these technology are not going to have an impact if we don't focus very seriously on the people. So it's about how to upskill the people, how to add additional talents so that we can really get the full benefit of AI. And here it's not only having a couple of trainings of 1 hour or 2 hours, of just having some experiments with prompting. Is going much beyond that. What we see more and more in terms of making it real is company that believe so much in it that they can tell you not using AI is going to be career limiting. So if you want to make a career with us, you have to use AI and to think with AI. And a lot of approaches where people start to think for specific processes. Can we rethink the process with AI first? So it's a different way of thinking about it, and something that. But the key thing here is having the impact is good, but more important is how can we enable scale? So if what we just said now is more about the foundation, moving from this everyday AI to reshape AI, measuring things, focusing on people, but to go to scale, then there are other kind of challenges because it's not just making an experiment on 1 or 2 processes company-wide. It's starting to have broader set of processes thought about. And of course, reinforcing and upgrading the whole data foundation. So starting to have these kind of MLOps approaches more solid, rethinking about the whole part related to the IT development, because many companies 2 years back were still skeptical about is it going to be good to have developers starting to use Gen AI for generating code. But when you start to do it more and more, like what many companies are starting to do, you have to rethink about how to test all the code that is generated, how to rethink about specific AI platforms. Are we having the right AI platforms? Is the future going to be with Claude, with OpenAI, with Anthropic, or whoever? So these are the kind of real questions. Whenever you want to go on scale, you don't want to redo this kind of investment multiple times. The second thing is really on the measurable impact. It's not just about measuring the impact on the couple of hours spent or a specific project. It's having a broader picture about what are the overall KPIs that need to be reconsidered in marketing, in sales with AI, or for the production and productivity. So here, this is quite interesting to see more and more companies looking at these areas, but also rethinking about what are the right programs, because it's also, we can't do everything. We see cases where companies start to have 300, 400 use cases, and this is of course not doable, and the company cannot digest it. So what are the priority cases where there can be really an impact, And do they have also the right sponsorship? And is it also integrated in the strategy and the objectives of the year? So this is something that is already starting to shift, particularly for the companies that want to scale and that want to scale even more boldly. And finally, the question about focusing on people is going to be a very important topic over the next couple of years. Most of the companies we're in touch with, they see that they don't have enough skills in the field. And it's not just about AI skills, it's about also super equipping each of their employees and people working in the company with additional capabilities so that they have these kind of additional superpowers using AI. So, and finally, I mean, there are different kind of studies that are about AI. We've picked some elements from one of the recent BCG reports. And one thing is clear. I mean, of course, you need to have a good focus on all these areas. There are lots of key success factors. And what is more and more clear from different studies is that, of course, you need data and technology, but the reality is probably then that 10% is going to be about technology, 20% about algorithms, but the 70% of the efforts is probably going to be focused more on processes and talent. So these are the kind of key elements that are going to be absolutely critical if one wants really to be able to scale. But these are some elements and some food for thought. We know that in the small and medium business ecosystem, we have different opinions about that. People don't see same kind of criticality of using AI, so there are different levels of awareness. And here we have a fantastic panel that is going to talk about the topic. And I'm going to hand over to Michi Wegmüller, that is going to moderate the panel with our distinguished guests. And Michi is a very experienced consultant that has more than 20 years of experience between AI, data science, and advanced analytics. Worked with very large corporations as well as with a lot of very dynamic companies. So lots of experience about transformation and making the things real and getting the impact moving ahead. Michi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Montasar. Thank you also for these insights from recent studies and from the field, from the front lines, as we call it. But now, without further ado, it's about my honor and my pleasure to also again introduce you guys to our panel. So let's start first with Robin. Robin has chosen here a Lego picture, depiction of himself. I think it actually met quite well in terms of how the look and feel. But other than Lego, actually, Robin is formerly at IKEA, working there as a country product leader and as such responsible for more than 70 local solutions that are being maintained and executed in a role as a product owner. But in addition, also he's the integration point for any sort of a topic of AI. And that's why basically he said as well, we should introduce him as the Swiss AI guy, as he's anyway involved in anything around AI that would touch base in IKEA in Switzerland. So cool you're here, Robin. Very curious to learn about your insights from your work at IKEA. Second, we have Paul. So Paul is formerly also Senior Digital Transformation Consultant, and that's since 3 years at the City of Zurich. But actually also I would also need to introduce him as Mr. AI, as he is driving anything around AI adoption and AI implementation that consists of the City of Zurich. So he has been, even beyond the City of Zurich being recognized for his drive for AI governance, and also is very interested in driving special governmental requirements when it comes to the implementation and generating impact and scale with AI. Paul, it's cool you're here. Thank you very much for taking the time. Third, we have Pascal Simon joining us from Viseka. Viseka, he has been there for 12 years, coming with more of a technical background. Right now, he's the head of business analytics services. As such, he's leading the portfolio and multiple projects inside of inside of Viseka, and is also such responsible for the group-wide AI initiative at Viseka. So Pascal, very cool that you're in as well. Thank you very much for taking the time. Last but not least, we also have Dennis with us. So Dennis Meyer has been a long history with UBS since 12 years working there, initially starting as a data scientist, but also having a very engineering background, coming from signals processing and lots of statistics. Right now, he is a chapter lead of AI for UBS in Switzerland, and as such, also responsible for the AI portfolio, selecting and driving a lot of AI use cases that are eventually then driving value at scale inside of UBS in Switzerland. But also, he has global roles, working as part of the UBS AI Vision project, and is also community leader for AI and data analytics guild inside UBS. So, as you can see, a very versatile group. Big experience. It's my honor to spend the remaining of the time with you going through some questions. And I thought, in order to get started, maybe it's good to leverage here a report from Gorpin. And here we can see that 48% of Swiss companies are right now, not only experimenting, but implementing AI as part of the processes. To me, it's clear, having had our discussions up front, you guys are far beyond that, right? So you are role models in the way how AI is being applied inside of your organizations and inside of your processes. Maybe we can make a quick turnaround and the round table around, how do you do that? How do you realize value and bring AI into production at scale? And probably also what have been your biggest challenges and inhibitors that you have seen. Robin, can I pass on the first word to you?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mickey, and it's a pleasure to be here. I would say we're up and running in production with AI at IKEA, but we were early and proactive, being such a big omni-channel retailer. Well, leveraging AI across the value chain just comes a bit naturally. But we also believe that digital and AI is the core of is one of the cores of our business model, and building the talent and skills internally is helping us through this transformation journey. So this being said, we of course also have a strong partnership with external companies, with big tech players and also smaller startups, just to get the cutting edge technology and also staying up to date, leveraging their know-how on how to accelerate our AI agenda. And while we of course ride the hype, we're also being realistic. We're a very sustainable and people-oriented company. So we know that AI has a lot of opportunities, but we also know its limitations. And we know quite well that not all business problems can or should be solved with AI. And I think, like many other companies, we're seeing clear value in traditional AI use cases, which are scaled already in the company. But when we look a bit more towards generative AI, we are being live with Copilot since more than a year now. So that's running and up in production for each and every IKEA coworker, no matter the role or function. And now we're moving into a more powerful Gen AI tools that also allow us to create agents and go towards more of this agentic universe at IKEA. This is, of course, driving change in such a big company with so many people. If you want to involve them all, is what I would say is also the biggest challenge. The more people you involve, the slower you get, and a transformation on a fast changing technology is then impacting the speed a bit when you go in with such a big scale. But we also see value in this big scale because experimentation creates knowledge, and this also creates value that will unlock even further for us. So our culture combined with our talents is for sure the success factor in this. I'm curious to hear others. How far are you?
Very inspiring. Thank you very much, Robin. Scale at all price. Very cool. Maybe Paul, let's take us a bit from a governmental point of view. How do you drive impact and adoption and bring AI to production to help really where it's needed?
I think we as the public administrations had a bit bumpy start, a rocky start to begin with. And there's not the one public administration. You have the 2,000 plus local administrations in Switzerland. And then you have the few big ones like the federal government or the government of Canton Zurich, the city of Zurich. I think the bigger ones had the opportunity to shift resources, people to that subject early on, but we had to sort out what it means for us. And I think every company knows that there's a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of risk, and we are very risk focused in the administrations, rightly so. So we had to sort out what it means for us, what we're allowed to do, and that was and is still a big concern of ours. How can we implement it in our processes and still being legal compliant? whereas there's often not exactly all the legal framework we need. So that's something we are working on to get that legal framework for public administration. And still we didn't do nothing. We invested a lot in training of our people, and that's also a major challenge because we are struggling to have, especially also the technical people that come to us. The market isn't that nice for public administrations. The benefits in public administration aren't as it could be perhaps in the private sector, because we're not that far yet. Perhaps, but I think now we're up and running. We have some really nice first projects that go. So I think we're lacking in the time frame that Montazar showed us in the beginning. We're 1 year behind everyone else. So we're still in looking at the experiments that are looking good, and perhaps we will go then in the further stage.
Thank you very much, Paul, for your insights. Let's probably shift over and let's have a quick look at Viseka. How do you drive impact and scale? Is that something, Pascal, that you have to share here?
Yeah, I mean, first question, when we talk about AI, what are we talking about, right? Viseka is now 25 years old, and it started at the very beginning actually with AI, which is called the machine learning at that time. And we built obviously models to manage risk. And over the years, we built more models. We built the whole team. So we have a fairly large analytics team by now. But actually, the progress was slow in terms of how we manage these models. It was a lot of manual work still. And only in the recent years, we built out more pipelines to automate that, to essentially have like ideally a factory to build models, to train, test, and deploy them automatically. Then came Gen AI, and the whole thing is a bit different, obviously, right? So we no longer build models, or let's say not so many, we use models. And that's quite different. We started like most started with an in-house chat application, attaching our knowledge base. And we started building the knowledge about all the specific challenges. The benefit we already had a team of data engineers, of data scientists. So that helped a lot to streamline this process. But on the other hand, we had, being Viseka financial company, quite strong inhibitors, because Gen AI initially was like a cloud-only technology, essentially. And we cannot really use the cloud as much as we would like to, as we need to keep our customer data on-premise. So initially it was very limited, that we could only essentially implement use cases that do not use customer data, which limits the whole impact significantly. Nowadays, of course, we progress quite a bit, so we are able to deploy LLMs on-premise, run them. And the big change, I think, or the big impact we can generate if we do that already, really integrate it into the core business processes. So having system A use an API of a Gen AI core component, and then acting upon system B, like really in the back end, and automating stuff like this. So this is, for me, I think that the big driver. Obviously, we also do the standard stuff like using Copilot for coders, Copilot also for the business. This is something I think you need to do. You need to upskill your people, and best to do that is to give them the tools so they can use them. This is where we stand. I think like everyone would like to be further already on the roadmap, but I think we made some progress. We have a lot to learn still. The road ahead is pretty uncharted. So we'll see where we get. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for sharing. And let's have a look also at UBS then. How is the world of AI working at UBS Switzerland?
Well, I find myself in my colleagues here. So First of all, I mean, I basically have to say, with everybody said something that really resounded with me. So the inhibitors that Pascal just mentioned, obviously, UBS as another financial services provider is also affected by very much the same inhibitors. We have by now managed to leverage the cloud, luckily, and we do have moved decisively beyond experimentation. We have on our internal chatbot over 52,000 employees. We also have the Copilot licenses rolled out over 55,000, and altogether that's millions of prompts across all our AI solutions now. And so I think we've moved very far, but we're also struggling with having not as much freedom maybe as other industries, and I think that's also good. Because it is very critical, and I'm happy also that Paul kind of said the same for the city of Zurich. As a citizen, I feel kind of happy, that we are maybe not moving that quickly. And the same as a bank client, I'm also sometimes happy that we don't move that quickly and don't, like in Silicon Valley, they always say move fast and break things. If the bank breaks, it's not super ideal. So we've been very focused on the risks as well. We have managed to move decisively beyond experimentation, and our ambition is definitely also to be an AI first. Also culture-wise, we also invested a lot in trainings, but stay responsible and sustainable is super important for us.
Thank you very much, Dennis, also for sharing your views. There is a lot of things to absorb, a lot of things to implement, a lot of things to train. Things are moving ahead, and as we have seen also before from Montesar, one of the key elements as well is to have a strategy in place. And if we look here at some reports that are coming out from Swissmem from a recent study, we see that only 28% of Swiss technical corporations actually do have one in place. Now, Paul, knowing that there has been a lot of efforts around the digitization strategy, and at the city of Zurich, there is also an AI center of competence that has been put in place. You're doing a lot of training now. So for public administration, you're facing unique expectations around the transparency and trust and regulation, and clearly responsible AI is going to be an even more important feature, so that the city can explain as well to the citizens on how things have been done and why they have been doing. So, how do you see this importance on growing and governance and training, and in order to grow adoption and enable the scale in such an environment? What thoughts do you have around that?
That's the main thing in public administration, and we're still working on the legal aspect. We had to wait what the federal government said the beginning of this year. So we won't go straight to the AI Act, but we will have sort of something like the AI Act, at least for the public administration. So that's something that's still work in progress. That's a good thing. I know a lot of very smart people working on that, the professors and so on at the universities and in all these panels. But for us, AI still moves on, and our employees also use the tools, and they use them more or less nicely, perhaps. As City of Zurich, we have a newly published Richtlinie, so governance for the employees, dating from the 20th of August, so it's quite new, and we're quite restrictive. So that's the main part that inhibits the scaling of AI a lot. It must be said so, but perhaps it's not that bad as we heard before, because we need to adopt the AI in administration, but perhaps not that quickly. That said, training is the main focus, because we had to publish this new guideline, but we had to publish it and go with a lot of trainings, and to train 28 to 30,000 people in 68 different departments, it's not that easy because they do a lot of different things. They do policing, they do social care or schooling or things like that, and the training focus needs to address them and their reality, and it's not that easy to bring up a training program that reaches everyone. And it's also a question of resources. We're perhaps more known as the bureaucratic entity and not the fast-moving startup. So to shift the resources where they're needed, it's not that easy. But it's the need is well known now. It had a lot of time, a bit of time to be recognized, but now it's well known, and I think we're in the good direction now.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I heard training. There is also conversation on tools, and looking also into the chat, and thanks for the many questions that are coming in. And to the experts in the panel, feel free in parallel to answer some of them, as Pascal already has done. But one particular question was also related to, should we make versus buy? Should we basically get our own team upskilled and ready, and then deploy and develop own solution, even probably to fine-tuning, leverage Apertus, the new Swiss LLM model? Would also be keen to learn if you guys are applying that already. Or on the other hand side, do you more look for getting really packaged solutions that you can implement? And also, how do you drive that in centralized or decentralized? Looking at a recent survey that has been done by Roman Anikis, one of our employees, he was looking through on how decision makers in non-IT related environments are making that. And what is obviously prominent here to see is that there is a lot of organizations who are actually doing, bespoke AI implementations, but they're also buying off the shelf. But net, if you compare the both, the majority of the organizations are actually going into the hybrid approach as such, and in addition then to that, off the shelf. So there seems to be a dominance around buying things that are ready to use. Now, looking more towards Viseka and Pascal in that sense, that's also a topic that you are interested to look through in details. So how do you do that at Viseka? If you go into, buy versus make, centralized versus decentralized, how do you choose the right approach? Is there something you can share on that, Pascal?
Yeah, I can share my ideas if it is always the right approach. I mean, never know, right? We will probably deploy the Apertus the next few days, by the way. So we are doing that. I think, as you said, many companies are doing both regarding the make or buy, and I think obviously you have to do both. It doesn't make any sense to build something like a GitHub Copilot your own because it is on the market. There are good tools. Huge teams have developed that, so just use it. I mean, there's no question about that. On the other hand, the more you move towards your core processes, value-generating processes, you have to be a bit more careful what you do there, because there are always these shiny marketing presentations showing you what AI can do. And then if you're lacking essentially the ability to judge, well, okay, is it just the presentation that looks nice, or does it really work? Then you might be in a bad place. So what I really strongly believe is that if you have a team, let's say there's also no golden bullet. Of course, you need to have a certain size. You need to have the financial means to have a team of engineers who can analyze that stuff. Then it really makes sense to do like small POCs, prototypes, to just see where are the challenges. For instance, we are doing that at the moment. We have a fairly large call center in Switzerland. You can imagine we have customers speaking all kinds of languages in Switzerland specifically, not the least difficult Swiss German, right? And now we try to also make use of that data. So we are trying to work with that data first ourselves, so we know where the challenges are, and then we see what is on the market, and we know to ask the right questions. And if we don't get a good solution, then we know we can do it ourselves. So it's an approach, I think, that works well for us. but it's really on a case-by-case decision if we buy or if we build it ourselves. On the other hand, you mentioned also, sorry.
Yeah, go
you
on,
mentioned
please.
decentralization. So I strongly believe that something like AI must be democratized. So it's a bad idea to centralize it because, as I just mentioned, you can centralize the team that rolls out GitHub Copilot, right? This is okay. Everyone can use it then. But on the other hand, the big gain you achieve inside the core business process, and those are not in a central place. They happen all across your company, and you need the teams to think about their process. How can they apply AI there? And this will not happen if you have a central entity to do that. You still need the central entity to apply the governance, of course, but that's a different thing. So this is how we try to approach it. Maybe not super successful in every aspect, but we are going in that direction.
Thank you very much, Pascal. We for sure will touch base on that point yet again. I'm very curious then to hear on Robin's side how they are doing that at IKEA in some minutes. But before that, let's quickly stick still for a second around, using and leveraging own and proven tools versus basically experimenting with Gen AI technologies. Also looking at some of the questions people were asking if there's also fine-tuning done or a specific model being trained by themselves. Looking at our own report that we have done with a couple of experts, it seems that again, in line with the previous numbers, that most of the survey participants actually prefer to use proven tools. Now, at UBS and in financial services, then is that there is always a pressure to innovate, but there's also a heavy regulation. So it's an interesting field in that sense. So how do you do that? And what are the kind of use cases that you see creating most value, and how do you identify them and manage them as well through the funnel, through scale, Dennis?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, Michi. Which use cases? I think what we do is the ones that address client needs are usually the most impactful. And if you look at what that is, it's for example, Gen AI powered analysis of client interactions. It would be, knowing more about your portfolio, being able to do all this knowledge we have about financial markets and what we do in those markets. And we have a huge, for example, chief investment office, and they have a lot of insights. And just connecting these insights with you as a client is a super hard challenge because there's so much research, there's so much going on in the world, in the markets, and AI can really help here. So kind of personalizing and bringing the right insights to the right client at the right time, that's a very good case. And then, of course, you also have the risk side of things, so improving for fraud detection, etc. So these are all things that directly really address client needs, and we found that these are the most impactful. So overall, we prioritize for strategic relevance, also regulatory feasibility, and then the measurable business value, as mentioned, is for us really the client in focus.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis, for these insights. Again, there is very good questions coming through. There was one particular one I would like to do a quick follow-up, Dennis, on the low-hanging fruits. Is there a golden bullet on that to find these low-hanging fruits in the AI pipeline as such?
I think, what we do a lot is talk to others and watch the market, not the financial market in this case, but the AI market, and do panels like this and watch Blocksphere, watch the open source community and learn what works well outside. So we spend a lot of time talking to other companies. And I think that's how you find, and everybody's experimenting a little bit, and usually if you just try everything out yourself, you're going to be much slower at finding the best low-hanging fruit. So that has been our approach. And then really just leveraging what's out there. If something works well and we think, okay, let's try that, and we just have a much higher success rate.
Very cool. Maybe that's also the right moment to say thank you to the Swiss AI Weeks team, because that's at the core on what you also say is having a platform and exchange, and thankfully there are also so many people who are joining in and are interested on that. So let's continue on the exchange, and as such, Robin, I'm now coming over to you. Yeah. So looking at the recent report that has been crafted by Accenture, you know, there has been estimations done that around 92 billion of GDP could be generated by generative AI. And one of the main driver has been actually identified to be democratized access to AI to all employees. Yeah. So having it open, and knowing as well from our pre-discussions at IKEA, you also have a very open approach, a very scalable approach, give employees access to data, but also to tools. So what, you know, how do you manage that? What opportunities and challenges do you see on that? And how do you also make sure that at some point, you know, it's open, but then it's also getting, again, focused so that you can maximize the impact? Tell us a bit more how that works at IKEA.
Yeah, and I really like that my friends here in the panel also all see it the same way. I think training is the essence of it. And IKEA, we're seeing this the same way. If we want to give power in the sense of data access and also access to really powerful tools, so people can build their own agents if they want to, no matter the role or function. It's really everyone at IKEA can do so. And to reach that, we're really making sure that they're growing their AI literacy. And this is not just about understanding the tech. This is also make sure that they're feeling confident and empowered to use AI responsibly, but not also in work, but also in their private life. And I think when people grow, then business grows. And this is really what we're trying to leverage here. We really believe that the more brains you have, the more ideas you have, and there are also the more use cases you will create. But to achieve that, you also need to give them the appropriate skills at hand, that they really can do something meaningful and also staying responsible. We were one of the first companies that pledged to the EU AI Act, and we're going a step further by having our own very sustainable and ethical approach on this. So some what's considered high-risk cases are a non-go at IKEA, even though they would be legally allowed. And to really make sure that we're going a step further, this high focus on the training is really what makes the difference. It also is, of course, the biggest challenge when you talk about the training program in a company with 32,000 people. That's just a lot of time investment. And I think, but if you manage the challenge of the training, then you can really reap not only the low-hanging fruits, but also the higher up-hanging fruits, because process improvements really come from within. This is where it's the most impactful in the end. But yeah, as others said, training is the key.
Thank you, Robin, for sharing that. Quite inspirational. This data science citizenship everybody can do, and basically work in a free way. But then on the side, there is also support that helps in order to scale. One element that in a way has not yet been addressed, but I also feel from conversations in the past and also from past experiences, is actually executive support. So if you look here at another study from BCG, there is 3/3 of all the executives that recognize that AI is one of the key imperatives. But yet there is only 25% of these executives seeing actually value on that. So there seems to be a thing that executives are also jumping in and helping to lead and drive AI initiatives from the top, so that they can be successful. It's as such it's a crucial factor. So how do you guys see that in the panel? Is there anybody that wants to volunteer on this point?
I mean, maybe I may. So I've seen these numbers before, and to some extent, it's not surprising, right? I mean, looking at what's going on in the market in the world, it's hard to not consider it relevant. There are now startups building their entire business models on top of AI, so you have to take that serious. On the other hand, specifically now the past 2 years, there are not so many companies who really made profit out of these use cases, because it's a lot of experimentation and there's a lot of failing, which is also part of the game. I think that's a bit the reason behind these numbers. But I think in the long run, probably 100% will see that it's relevant and that it's also necessary to stay in the game in the long run. That's just
Yeah,
my
maybe-
take on this response.
You have something to add on that? Thank you, Pascal.
Yeah, this was a perfect segue, Pascal, because I fully agree. I think this experimenting and failing, also failing fast and learning is really the essence of it, of mastering a new technology. This is the essence. But I think this can come from an executive sponsorship, but this also can come from a culture of within. We at IKEA have a very strong culture of personal development. So people do have the time coming from the culture, not from an executive sponsorship, to develop themselves and their skills for their individual growth plans. And I think no matter how the time gets realized or gets enabled for the many to explore and also fail, sometimes it's executive sponsorship, but I think the other companies, there's a good culture for that. And that also supports, then you don't need the executive sponsorship. But no matter how you turn and twist it, the time to experiment and also fail and learn is quite essential in this.
Yeah, are there additional opinions? Paul, yes, please.
Yes, of course. I couldn't agree more. And we, as public administrations, we're not expected to fail. We're expected to bring public services, good public services. So it's not in our culture to really experiment. And when we fail, then it's a big fail. So we go further and further to try to make it right. So that mindset of fail fast, that's something that we need to implement, that we have in some small places in administration, but that's not the overall mood in the public administration. But I can we need to adapt, so we will.
Maybe
hope so.
if I can add on the executive sponsorship, I think it's super important. I mean, yes, the experimentation is important, but I think without strategic alignment, you really just get stuck in pilot mode. And for at UBS, it's really top level priority with clear defined goals, a lot of governance, not just in terms of safety and security, but also in terms of business cases and transforming the business to make us better every day. And this would I think not happen at this scale if you don't have the executive sponsorship and the belief that it really is a moment that we need to capture.
Thank you very much. Now, okay, we need executive sponsorship, and now let's go to the other direction and the other angle. And Montesar has already showed that beforehand. But yet, I mean, now we can say 70% is on people and processes and culture, all important factors, but still 30% comes out of data and technology. And I feel now also with Apertus in mind and with what is happening outside as well in the world, there is an emerging topics around AI and data sovereignty. So people want to stay under control. We need to make sure that we have good, sound data platforms that we can control that are staying in Switzerland. So is there anything around that on the technology side that you feel at this very moment where we are right now becomes to really a critical success factor in order how to now not only impact, realize an impact and that scale, but also do that in a secure and controlled manner? Are there thoughts on the panel on that side? Who would like to give it to go first?
Maybe I can make a little bit the point that, I mean, the technology, sorry if I say that like this, but I mean, the technology is, I think, now at the stage where we rather try to have like everything that exploded, and of course it's still so quickly evolving, but the fundamentals, at least it feels to me, and also I don't know if the others share that, but the fundamentals have not changed so much, and also the launch of GPT-5 and so on. It was a little bit a dip in the curve of everybody expect, okay, the next huge gigantic step, and again everybody's running for the future. So I think that this release, and maybe also other signals for me, are around that the tech, the fundamentals are there. It's for me now more about figuring out how do we best make it now happen in all the complexities of the real world of a big enterprise like UBS, but I guess also in other contexts. So I don't have this one thing, right, where I would say, okay, that's the tech that I'm really now that is really the thing, except for, of course, the whole agentic topic. But then you can also argue how new really is that. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, maybe I also might add here, I also see, like just Danny said, kind of a saturation, that there was really like a revolution explosion in the past 3 years, let's say. And now we at least think we know what is there. We'll see, maybe there will not be another revolution. But one of the key things that we need to learn to manage with this technology that we still struggle a bit is that it's extremely fragile, everything. So everything based on LLMs is like, it's really a different thing to standard corporate software that you develop. You have your unit tests. It works always exactly the same as you tested it. You can rely on it. It's not the case with all that we build on top of these LLMs. And I think many of the processes in IT, also in business, need to adapt to deal with this new kind of fragility, how to manage that. Also in Viseca, not all of our processes are really compatible with that pattern, and that will be still a challenge to address and to solve for us, and I think for many others in the coming years.
Indeed. Are there additional points on that? Or probably also a bit more towards sovereignty, Paul. I assume that's also a topic on your hand side, keeping the data under control and then going on Aperto's model probably. Is there something to share on your side on that point?
Yeah, that's one of the main things we're thinking about, of course, and we're not that quick to build up the capabilities to be able to manage this. There's a lot of offerings on the market, but as we heard, it's a lot of marketing also. We, for example, don't have Copilot licenses because we are not that sure that we could go there with our data. That's a problem in the democratizing the access. So yes, this is one of the biggest questions in public administrations, and I can't tell you we have the answer. There's a lot of different administrations. Smaller ones will have perhaps quicker fixes than the bigger ones.
Thank you. Montasar, putting you on the hook quickly, you have been helping to monitor a bit of the chat in parallel. Are there some burning questions? From a very active community here, and thanks also for all the answers that the experts have already added in there. Montasar.
Yeah, so quite a lot of exchange in the chat. So many questions have been already partly addressed. I mean, sovereignty came multiple times under different angles, so I had it in the background. There are some questions that are still open about, how to get additional general acceptance of the solutions with the users, external users, front-end workers, and so on. Some more technical approaches, questions about, infrastructure, hybrid AI, cloud models, and as well as model degradation. I mean, are some of the companies also dealing with model degradation when buying off the shelf solutions? I mean, these are some of the pending questions. There are other more general questions. I think we're not going to be able to go on these. But I think acceptance and infrastructure model degradation could be interesting questions.
Yeah, short answer, just deploy the model yourself, then you know what you have. But of course, it's not always an option. We've seen that to some extent, but it's like, let's say, not as big a problem yet to really be concerned. But I see the challenge, yes. So if you want to be really sure, as I said, if you own the model and or you deploy it yourself, then you know what you have.
Thank you, Pascal. Are there additional questions, Montasar, or maybe you put one on the hook?
I mean, I think the question about the acceptance is still an important one. I mean, it was already addressed earlier, but the question about how also to think about the general acceptance, not only of the front-end workers, but also on the external users. Is it going to be a trend moving forward? How do they perceive these new tools? Is it they ask for more from it, or is it any views on this?
Yes, because we saw a great acceptance of all the tools that we launched, but that's mainly coming from the fact that if you have something good, then people will like to use it. And I think it's easier with Gen AI or with the current technology to build really software that is user-friendly and really good, also with new chat or voice interfaces. And that's what I believe is really helping in the acceptance by the many in the end. If it's helping you, then you will accept it. And so as long as you build something meaningful, then I don't think there's a big issue.
And Michi, there is a question that just came about how are you managing ethical consideration and risks?
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to comment on that? Robin, I see you have micro open.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a question I could talk about for an hour because we have an own ethics committee just about that. But I think if you follow the EU AI Act, then you're already in a very good shape. And if you then still consider maybe not touching the high-risk use cases that they are defined by the EU AI Act, then you're even going further. And I guess then you're really good from an ethical perspective.
Maybe I can also comment from UBS side. So we have very comprehensive setup over there on that topic. We have, first of all, training for all employees, just for everybody, literally everybody, all the users, everyone, the whole company. Then we also just recently in July launched our group AI policy, setting global standards on the development, adoption, and operation of AI across UBS. So that means also certain no-fly zones, certain things that we don't do or don't allow as UBS in terms of AI, going going beyond what is not allowed by the regulators. And also we have AI governance integrated in all our existing risk frameworks. I mean, we've been doing AI, quote unquote, for far longer than a decade, and therefore we had already in place model risk control, data protection, data governance, data and information security, like many others. So a ton of frameworks, and the recently launched AI policy has brought that together and really made sure that it's all aligned in terms of what we do in AI at UBS with our code of conduct and with these policies.
Yeah, and for Viseca, it's a bit similar. Of course, we had already policies in place for our risk models, for instance, that you need to take consideration about bias, ethical principles. These are still valid, and we're also rolling out now a EU AI Act based regulation internally for governance, so addressing these concerns.
Thank you very much. We are starting to get to a close at the top of the hour. I have one final question for you guys, and it's a short one, and it's also related to a research that has been conducted by the ETH and Wire, identifying that in the next 5 years, there is quite high expectations towards productivity gains. In fact, 95% of the organizations feel there will be a huge productivity gain, and as well, 86% believe that there is a significant boost in innovation. So basically, the time looks bright, the opportunity is big, but there are risks, obviously, that we have to manage. Now, if you would consider small and medium businesses, what would be your one tip, the short tip that you would give to the companies right now out there? What does it need to take to realize impact and scale? Maybe we can go one after the other. Who would like to start?
I mean, I can start with a general one: invest in your people. This is the core of your business and will be the core of your AI journey.
+1.
And now, no, don't say +2, +3. We all agree on that.
I mean, maybe to add another point, I think it's don't overcomplicate it. So really use what's out there. What I said earlier, talk to people. There are also many consultancies, right? And not only the one hosting this, but many that are working on that and can give great advice. Also, even if it's just quickly at the beginning, what works well, what doesn't work well, and then see what others are doing in their industry and don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I can kind of second that. Don't plan for 5 years, right? These things move so fast. So go now, start now, do it. It will anyway look different in 2 years. So don't overthink everything, but you have to start. It will not just pass. So do it.
Very good. Thank you very much. And in that sense, there is another opportunity to network. We're going to have on the 2nd October a more technical conversation on how to use AI to automate DevOps. Agentic DevOps might be an interesting, also from a control and sovereignty perspective, interesting field to talk about. If you're interested, feel free to join us on there. But other than that, it's my pleasure again to say thank you to the panel and to you, Dennis, Robin, Pascal, and Paul for joining us, for sharing your views and your insights. I hope that most of the questions could also be answered as part of the chat. And other than that, if you have further questions or would like to continue the conversation, we would be more than happy to connect with you guys. Thank you very much. And we do wish you a successful day and a successful Swiss AI Weeks. See you soon.
Thank you very much to you all. And one final comment from our side, from the Swiss AI Weeks. Thanks for these valuable inputs. Very important, this panel. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank also UBS and Viseka. They are very early partners of the Swiss AI Week. So they made this also possible, that we are now having 220 events. And I'm just sharing their challenges in the chat if anybody would like to have a quick view on that, what they are planning. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thanks, Sabine. Bye.